You know what it is. You rocking with Chocolate World, man. Keep bouncing.
Elevation Radio.
I know we're live. You.
Yes, we in the building.
Right, check.
Live.
We're back.
We are back.
Give you a little music break. Elevation Radio, Chocolate World. We have Turp Life in the building,
Turp Life in the building.
which is always a pleasure.
Thank you so
We
much.
have
I
that-
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I mean,
Thank
you're
you for
welcome.
adding me to the show now,
Yes,
too. I got my
yes.
own little part.
Yeah, she's around for a couple
I'm
months.
around
so
for a couple months.
why
in the
not?
building.
Why not? We can use all the help. We
Right.
We can use all the help. We can use.
Right, so we can use all that. We can use all that. Oh, we can.
Mhm.
I feel you. Well, so for all of you out there, savvy national media arts, Turf Life, what else? Queens on a Mission. I am here in New Jersey, hometown. You know how we do. I'm here with Breeze. I'm here with
Fernando
Q.
Mary Jane.
Fernando Jane.
Fernando.
Okay, but his real name is Q, and he's dope too. Shout out to Q though, cause
AKA,
let me tell
AKA
you
Beats
something.
Mars. Beats Mars, the genre surfer, well-known producer out here in the area.
We won't call him Mars. Beats Mars is a tag that he uses
Beats-
also. Beats, B-E-A-T.
Beats Mars.
Yeah,
Beats Mars. All right, B-A-T-Z or S?
yeah, Z. It's a Z.
B-O.
Mars with a Z.
Yeah.
Mars with a Z.
You know we gotta be hip.
Shout out to Q though. Let me tell you something. His Facebook page be jumping. Like he be on some real shit. Like talking about real stuff that you really be thinking about that nobody really want to say. Because people on your Facebook be like,
Yeah, I lost
like
a lot
I'm
of friends.
really
Yeah,
feeling
the
like
judge.
I be really
lose-
following you
I lose
for real.
all kinds of friends and family members, and for fighting for what I believe in.
I know that's right, but I promise you, like I've been really following your Facebook page and some of the things that you've been posting, and like I just be chuckling, and then half the time I be like, "Yo, I'm glad I'm not the only one, though."
It's something that just
He's,
needs to be
he's,
addressed.
he's the honest asshole.
You really are.
I'm the empathetic one. I'm the one that like, oh, I kind of understand.
That's me.
I kind of get it.
That's me. I can go for that.
I'm the blunt one, man. Like I don't think we have time to bull crap around and sugarcoat stuff and all that. So I just gotta be
Are we on
just upfront with it.
Yeah, we can cuss. We podcasting. We cuss all day in here.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
He's being I don't know. I don't know
What?
what's happening.
What happened?
He said bull crap.
Nah, he might not cuss as much.
Right.
Me
Sure
personally,
did.
I can't wait to cuss on air.
Me either. Oh my, it's like a thing.
Shit.
It's like a thing. Shout out to Steve. What should I say?
Steve Peacock.
Like the bird.
Steve
Steve
Oh
Peacock.
shit.
Yeah, that's a good way to remember it. Think
Damn
like bird,
Peacock.
the beautiful bird that is.
That and there's some
That's not
beautiful
your,
ass
is that your real
birds,
last name?
too.
If you mind me asking, that's your real government name?
That is his
real-
real
Oh
government
man, I thought that was a
name.
stage name this whole time.
It is the real deal.
Can
My
you,
mom got remarried when I was younger and actually changed names. So, yeah, my name was different when I was younger. In fact, when my mom started teaching what would later become my dad, when she started dating him, I said, my sister and I said, oh, Peacock? I hope she doesn't end up marrying this one.
And now all of y'all had that last name though.
That's right. And a wonderful dad after the absence of my natural dad. So I had Mr. Peacock. Kevin Peacock came along, and he was a wonderful man.
That is what's
God
up.
rest his soul. He passed away just a few years ago, but he gave me a
Salute.
wonderful name and a wonderful life. And,
That's what's
you know,
up.
That's crazy.
Salute,
I really believe that
Kevin
was
Peacock.
his stage name.
Right.
Because it kind of
Rest in
fits a little
Sure,
bit
it
too. So
sounds
it's like
made up.
Kevin Peacock, definitely. Hey, oh look at my
That's actually
boo.
pretty cool.
Hey, chill. Ew.
That's awesome.
But yeah, shout out to him because can you just do it one time? Just one time.
Do
We're
what
gonna
one
hear. We're gonna hear this one time. We're gonna hear it.
Anything
You gonna.
just-
So you want my intro or
anything-
We
something?
want the
just-
intro. We want the intro. We want the intro.
Yes.
All my savvy national media arts people in Atlanta. These are Atlanta people.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen from Atlanta, and welcome. Buenas noches, damas y caballeros, y bienvenidos. And if any of you happen to speak Russian, dobro pozholovat. Welcome to you all, and welcome all. Elevation 8 listeners. This is Steve Peacock, ring announcer, and I am delighted to be here tonight. Oh, and by the way, to all of my students at Lakewood High School who did not believe that I would be interviewed on a program named Chocolate World, here I am. If you ever, you know what I'm saying? If you ever think that I lied to you, you know that I proved it wrong this time. Because,
That's
I told
the promo for that right there.
Yes.
That
Right.
will be on Facebook tonight.
Right.
That
Right.
definitely
Did you
will be on
record that
Facebook
though?
tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. It's on there. It's,
Look,
we
it's
all
all
got it.
right. Like, it's all right. Chill. Chill like, he all,
They really thought I was joking when I told them that. Because
they all clapping.
Like, you're going on Chocolate World, like, really?
keep in mind, too,
Really?
you have to put it in context. I teach in a school that is 99%
Black
person of
people.
color.
Of course.
Okay? So, and my students, who I love, and most of them, at least some of them like me, when I told them that, it got quiet for a second. Like, get out of here. You messing with us or what?
The chocolate world though.
But why
Why not?
you, middle-aged white guy,
Right.
get on a hip-hop station named a program named Chocolate World? And I looked at them and I said, "You heard of white chocolate, haven't
Thank
you?"
you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
That's exactly what I'm
Thank
talking
you.
about. We,
that's right.
When I came to the Queen show to announce that I was going to have a show called Chocolate World, it was, Cannon was on there. You know he's a white guy.
Yeah,
He raps. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So they're like, white chocolate world. And I was like, yeah, you know, because you got all kinds of chocolate. You got your dark chocolate. You got your milk chocolate. And you
Dark
got your
chocolate, white
you got your
chocolate, all
white
the
chocolate.
chocolate.
It was like, everybody starts,
Chocolate
white
World.
chocolate. I'm like, yeah, there's such thing as white chocolate.
White chocolate,
Yeah.
right?
Come on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We actually
So
have
there
a
you go,
segment.
Lakewood. Yeah.
So we actually have a
He's here.
segment that we were going to go forward with called White Chocolate Hour, where we were going to showcase people that got soul, but not necessarily people
Black,
of color.
right,
So
they
it's-
right.
Interesting.
Look, I got some people to add to that
like
little.
your
I
Billy
got some people to add to
Caldwell's,
that
Justin
list.
Timberlake's, and you know, they're invited. All people that are invited
Michael
to the,
Bolton.
to the
I
party.
look.
I say, I think Sinatra.
Look.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course, of course.
Look, I'm the old school Michael Bolton. Let's not pretend like he ain't got no soul.
Yes.
That white long hair dude, he got some soul in him. I love me some Michael
I mean,
Bolton.
Everybody's got.
You said
soul.
what?
I said, we might as well throw ZZ Tops and everybody in there.
Child,
You know what I
all
mean?
right now.
Music, baby.
Speaking of solo, check this out. The other day, I was talking to some students in the hallway. Some of them who I have as in my classroom, others who just know of me. And this one girl, when she saw how I was just talking like a regular guy, you know, I wasn't trying to be anything. I was just talking to these kids like human beings. And this one girl looks at me and she said, "Mr. Peacock, if I'm not mistaken, I think you may have a little black in your soul." Her exact words. And I was like, I said, I know exactly what you mean. Because, again, we were connecting, communicating like human beings do and should. They weren't trying to be different. I wasn't trying
Be different.
too
exactly.
hard. You know what I mean? Because let's face
I
it, when it
love
comes
that.
to intercultural communication,
Yes.
some people
They
do
try
make
too hard.
mistakes trying too hard,
Yeah.
trying to be something that they're
Yeah.
not. And that's why I do so well
Hey, man, what's
in this
going on? What's
environment.
Yeah, and
Right.
you're like,
What up?
I don't even talk like that.
Right.
You know what?
Ooh,
I,
excellent point. Yeah,
Or
I've seen that
anything-
happen, and I shake my head.
anything
and
with
say,
an
"Oh,
ism.
my God."
Right.
Or for shizzle, anything with an easy or izzle or izzle or something, they just throw
Right,
that shit
right,
there.
right,
Like,
right.
By DZ.
I definitely just want to say this though. That story you just told about, you know, the student coming to you and saying, "Hey, Mr. Peacock, you know, I think you got a little bit of soul in you." I got much respect for you for that
Yes.
because you know, at the end of the day,
That's a lot.
these are black kids that are only seeing white cops in their neighborhoods kill their daddies, their cousins, their brothers, they all this, and to still be able to have a teacher that they feel like they can trust, they feel like they can that they can talk to, that they can relate to. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, that means you're doing something right in your classroom to gain the respect of these urban children.
Yes.
Because these urban kids ain't seeing nothing but craziness right now. And let's be all the way real. And then we got all these suicides going on now.
Mental health is
You know,
a big
it's
issue right now too.
You know, this
Hey, I just went through a mental health issue with my son. If we're gonna be honest,
Yeah, I mean,
a couple
you
weeks
just
ago,
speak to
he was feeling suicidal. Like he actually came to
Oh my
me.
God.
Like
Oh
my
my
mom
God.
had hit me up and she was like, "Yo, talk to your son." Like something. Like he came to me. He said that he's not right. Like he's not feeling right now. And I smiled. I smiled because it was one of two things I smiled for. That phone call could have went totally different, where your son is gone. You know what I mean? And I was happy that wasn't the case, and I was happy because he actually reached out to someone.
Right.
And it was my mom, and my mom called. So I called him immediately, and I was like, yo, you good? Like, everything good? And he was like, nah. Like, I'm not good right now. So we talked. And it might have been like a good 15, 20-minute talk. And he was like, Dad, that is exactly what I needed. He was like, thank you. Wow. And I was like, dude, thank you. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
okay, but here it is, though. Are you going to take the extra steps to get what he needs, though? Like, that talk might have not just been all that he needs.
Me and my son are very, very close. See, that's the thing. Like, okay. I'm a Pisces. He's a Pisces. We're only 3 days apart.
I mean, you know,
he was born the 19th. I was born the 22nd. Everything I told him he needed, he told me himself, like, I needed to hear that. He was like, thank you. Like, he said that was clutch right there. He was like, this conversation was clutch. Like, I needed to hear that. And because I know everything he's going through. So it was like, just he needed that dad talk. And we had that talk. And everything's great now. It just made us closer, like, way closer now. Like, so, yeah. If your kids are saying things or acting a certain way, don't dismiss it. Don't act like, oh, he's a teenager, or he's just turned the 20s, in his 20s, he don't know yet. No, he might be going through some things, or she might be going through some things. So make sure you talk to your kids, man. Just talk to them. Sometimes they don't like talking to us because of certain things, certain ways we are, certain things we forget that we were kids too. At certain times. As parents, mostly as parents, we always forget that we were parents. So when you're looking at your kid talking, just remember, like, that was you talking to your mom and she didn't understand you, or you might not, like, you know what I mean? So just look at that and
Perspective.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
And, you know, and I would go ahead.
Go ahead. I just saying.
But I just wanted to get that out the air, because me and my son, we're gonna actually have a show about that, like me and my son. So
I think we should. I think that would be definite. That would be an awesome show.
We're definitely doing that show. So, you know what I mean?
Please, I would love to be there for that show.
Thing, y'all.
It is.
Especially in our community, because a lot of us, Black and Spanish people, I don't really know if they talk. We don't talk about it.
We don't.
No, we don't.
We really don't. Like, it's not really a topic.
Even like psychiatry, going to a psychiatrist or something like that's frowned
upon. Go to a straight. Like, what, you crazy? I don't even know. Like, yeah, you might. You know what I mean? Like, Black people.
And I always wonder, why is it like that in our communities,
but
though?
As our elders would tell you, back in the day, they always, like, therapy to them was a bottle. You go get you a bottle, you go get you some weed or something, and they thought, like, these things would help you cope with your problems for the moment. But it's this things that stuff's not gonna. It's like a temporary.
It don't help that you gotta ride by 4 liquor stores to get to this psychiatrist anyway.
So you know what I mean.
It's ready and available.
I think we should look into that a lot more, just for, you know what I mean.
Of course,
mental health is serious in our community.
And to piggyback off of what Q was saying. You know, when we decide to get into the domestic violence that we're going to talk about today, after our interview with Steve, that's a big thing in the domestic violence situations too, like our children. You know what I'm saying? Like our children, like my daughter is very angry. Like
it takes a toll on you too.
Domestic
violence
does.
and mental health. That's like
sending her up here. You know what I mean? During all those times, like, it really takes a toll on them. Like, I had to put them in counseling and everything, and I still don't think she's right, because she still hates me a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's definitely time to talk to our children. And, you know, if not for us, do it for the kids. You know, it took me a minute to figure that out.
People always think it's the teachers' jobs.
It is not.
You put too much on the teachers.
We really do.
Like, parenting is not.
Yeah.
Parenting is
coming
not
from
a
a teacher.
job.
Coming from a teacher.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Because people, I've seen it in tons of homes where I frequent with people, and it's like so dismissive with it. Like, oh, the teacher will take care of that tomorrow for you.
All the time.
And you're like,
Wait,
No,
what?
you're a parent.
Thank you.
Get
We
down
are
there
the
and help
parent,
him with his
right?
homework. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
The fact that our kids are already with the teachers more than they are with us. Why is it teachers' responsibility? Because at the end of the day, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to teach your kids after the teachers already taught them what they taught, what they learned today.
Listen.
It's your turn. That's what homework is for.
my son knows
That is
his
what homework is
ABCs.
for.
My son knows his ABCs, his shapes, his numbers, his colors. We're working on writing right now, and he's learning Spanish with me, and he's only 2. I put him in
That's
the
the way to do
daycare,
it,
and the teacher called me and was like, "Yeah, he's pretty much smarter than every kid we have in here, and there's 3 and 4, 5-year-olds in here." And I was like, "That's good then. He can help them because he'll start showing them how to." Like kids watch kids learn. Like, you know what I mean? Like
They
little
learn-
kids
they
will
learn
watch. Yeah, they'll learn together.
Right, but understand this though. If your child, you have to sometimes you do have to understand if your child is in an IQ, it's only us that hold our children back. Your child is 2 years
I
old.
know that.
Understand that. Your child is 2 years old and knows all these things. He definitely shouldn't be in the daycare he's in. You need to go ahead and put him in whether you gotta get an extra job and pay for some extra shit, or you need to fill out an application for financial hardship. But he needs to be in a school that's going to challenge him more, because what's going to happen is when you have an exceptional child with some mediocre children, you have to understand that children are still children, and it's still going to rub off on.
I got a
your son
sister in
as well.
Japan, so I can't go with that all the time. It's the child who will determine that within themselves.
True indeed, but it's up to us.
Because my sister didn't go to any different schools than any of us, and she taught herself Japanese, is in Japan right now teaching English to Chinese kids or Japanese kids. And she went through everything we went through, like all the hardships, everything. It was her mom that kept her straight. You know what I mean? Kept her on that path. My mom did that. So as a parent, stick to your child.
I mean, I can go for that. But there's times where, just like, those Japanese children, those tiger moms that kind of, those children that are like way above and over the top, and, they're doctors at 10. You know what I mean?
And a lot of them are suicidal, though, because their parents are too hard on them.
Yeah.
Those Japanese kids, that's not a good, you know what I mean?
I believe that was racist.
I can't go for that. I can't go for Japanese kids. I can't go for them.
Suicidal
and all that. That's farthest from the truth. That's farthest from the truth.
They're not?
That is farthest from the truth.
I mean, they're smart as hell.
They are
It's
smart.
about
Japanese
discipline.
and
It is about energy, though. If
But
you do
ask
have
the
a
Japanese
smart
child how
child,
much pressure they have on them. Like, because
Okay.
they never come home.
But
Like,
it-
after school, they're violin practice. You got this practice. You got this practice. You come home, you eat, you go to sleep. Half of the stuff they don't even like doing, it's just their parents are making them do it.
yeah. But if it's the norm, how bad is it?
If it's the norm, right, and you don't know no different. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, come on now.
I mean, it is.
talk
It
about
is.
it.
You really can mold up a child in exactly the way that you, and you just got to be aware of the energy
It's the
that
same
you
way
put
like
them around.
a bunch
the
of people
you
are
put them
raised in the
around
same
stuff,
house and all the kids turn out different.
True indeed. I can
It's
go
the
for that
kids.
too now. I can go
It's-
for that
you know
too
what I mean?
now. Because and I agree, because the reason why I'm on the fence with some of this stuff too, though, I agree the same way that you're saying. We're gonna have to agree, disagree.
I mean, I got 7 kids. Like, all of them are totally different. Like, you know what I mean? From being a parent in their lives the whole time, I'm living off of the experience. Like, I've seen it happen. I'm watching my children do these things. You understand? It's not like me just saying these things. I have experienced them all with different children, with different personalities, and yeah.
Let's
And
say
they're all, and so far, so good.
similar to what you were saying about in Japan and the high pressure. I briefly taught in Monmouth County at a school, and I'm talking wealthy district.
Yeah.
Like,
Is that
I
close
can't
to
even.
Bergen County?
Not quite that far up.
Okay.
Yeah, Monmouth is it's like north of
Center.
Seaside. Yeah, it's more like central New Jersey,
Okay,
and not
okay,
quite
okay.
North Jersey.
Okay.
Really, I won't identify the district just to protect people's privacy, but wealthy district. The average income in each household was like 140, 150,000. It's just a well-off
Yeah,
district. I was there for 2 months. 2 kids committed suicide, and I found out within a 2 or 3 year period they had at least 4 suicides. Now, don't get me wrong; there are different reasons
Yeah, I'm
for
about to
those
say.
suicides. But again, this is a wealthy district with a lot of money, parents involved in the kids' lives. 2 kids in 2 months committed suicide when I was there, and 4 within a couple of years. So I mean, I guess there are various factors, but yeah, sometimes kids don't have enough time to play.
Be kids.
Like they don't have time. The kids don't have time to be kids, and
I'm telling you, I've done this with my children. Each and every one of my kids have been an experiment, dude.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I say with me and my mom. I was my mom's first kid. We grew up together. Like, you know what I mean? She raised me, but my grandmother was pretty much like my mom was young. So she was still out and about doing what she does. And like my grandmother took me under her wing and raised me with the morals and everything I needed to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was a little easier by the time my sister was born. My mom had the blueprint. Like, you know what I mean?
So, I mean, y'all had different experiences too. Even though being in the same household, it's like even with me and my brother growing up, like my brother, he was more the one that got into trouble. Like me and my brother's like total opposites. You meet my brother, our voices.
Like
the only thing we got together
Eddie
is
Murphy
the
and
voices.
Charlie
yeah,
Murphy.
yeah. Only thing we share is the voice. Our voices sound similar.
Wow.
Like he's a lot better now, but going forth he was real heavy in the streets and like getting into trouble and stuff like that. And it's like I learned from watching that. Like I tell people like I don't sell drugs because I seen the worst drug dealer ever. And I was just not the worst, but like you feel me, just kept getting back, kept getting caught. So no disrespect, Nugget. I love you, but it's not your thing. Oh,
yeah, right.
That was an alias anyway. So
how many of them?
Nobody knows who.
How many of them are?
Right.
But yeah, like I was saying, like being in the same household, it's like we had similar experiences, but they were different because it was just coming like me being a year. Like we're only a year and a day apart. So you would think that we would be more alike because we're closer, but it's like
and a lot of that sometimes like your brother, y'all, I don't want to be like him. So you fight, you push away from that.
Exactly.
Like,
and a lot of it was our view of our father too. Like my father, he was a good person, but he had his flaws, alcohol and stuff like that. And there's some stuff that people glorified that maybe I didn't glorify. I was like, I don't. That's okay, but it's not nothing that I would want to be going forward. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. It is the child. A lot is the child. A lot of it is energy. It's
like when I
balance.
say like people push their kids to do things, and they don't do those things. Like I do push-ups in the morning. You know what I mean? And my son, he used to watch. Like I noticed he used to watch. Like you know what I mean? So they say like your kids will do what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Your kids, they figure out they'll do whatever you love, they'll do it. So I started doing push-ups, and I just remember one day I got down, did my little stretching, and I got down, and I looked over, and he was like sitting there looking at me like ready to go down, like, all right, like let's do this, Daddy, like come on. And I was like, wow, like you don't see what your kids see, you know what I mean? Like what they're actually, the things that they're paying attention to. So it's just, I don't know, man. Touchy topic.
Product of your environment.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Peacock, getting back to the teaching of the children. When you first started, did you find it difficult to connect with these children, these urban children, or was it like something? Is it something that you being not from New York, but spending time in New York, so I know you've been around the culture and stuff like that. So, was it more or less you having to learn these children, or you kind of had an idea going in?
Fortunately, I've spent my life in like very multicultural environments. You know, like I lived in the Bronx up until I was 12 years old, and had some exposure. I know that may sound strange to some people. I lived in the Bronx, had some exposure to people of different cultures. Back in the 70s, there was still a lot of neighborhoods where you had a largely Irish and Italian neighborhood, and maybe a neighborhood that was mostly African American, a Puerto Rican neighborhood. There was a mixing of people even back in the day. It was my experience in Lakewood that definitely helped me as a teacher, because Lakewood at the time was truly diverse. I mean, just to give you an example, I'm pretty sure at the time Lakewood High School was, say, maybe 60% white, 35% African American, and the rest maybe Latino, mostly Puerto Rican. Truly diverse environment. So helped me as a teacher many years later also, I moved back to New York as a young man in my 20s. I moved back for 5 years. So I spent a lot of time in environments with people from all over the world, people from New York. I mean, I've been in places good and bad in New York when I was a young man in my 20s that I don't even know if I can tell you about half of them here. But I've been, I think you hit it the nail on the head. I've been around the block. I've been in international hotels with successful people from all over the world. I've also stood in the bathroom of a reggae club with Rastafarians with large bags of product as I'm trying to take care of business. I've been in some interesting places. Anyway, but back to your question.
Yes.
My exposure, my experiences with people of color and people of different ethnicities, no doubt helped me going in as a teacher. However, before I started teaching in Lakewood, I taught for 1 year in Trenton. Now, despite my background, it was challenging at times. Sometimes it was maybe just me learning to communicate more effectively with the kids. Many of them I got along with, I connected with after a while, but let me tell you, that was a tough one to break into. Kids were not open, to my storytelling. Like like the kids in Lakewood right away, they listen to my stories, they loved it. Kids in Trenton be looking at me like, oh yeah, how about that? But it was a great experience, and after a while, in a very tough urban neighborhood, it was a great experience, and it was a terrible experience at the same time. It was one of the toughest jobs I ever had. I can't say I enjoyed it, partly because it was a disorganized school I was in, and they didn't give me the resources. It's not like, oh, these kids are bad, I hate the job. It wasn't that. That made it tough. It was a tough experience. But let me tell you, it made my life easier when I did get to Lakewood, because I knew how to stay cool. I knew how to use humor. I knew that you don't go in and say, do it my way or the highway. That'll get you far in inner city Trenton. Nah, you got to find a better way to communicate, and that's what makes me effective as a teacher for the most part.
Yeah, that humor is a big part of it.
Saves me on many days. I get kids who want to start a fight with me, want to give me a hard time, and rather than arguing with them or saying, I'm going to write you up or I'm going to call your mother, I look at them and I'll say this intentionally joking around. I'm not like trying to speak the language. I say it to be goofy. I'll look at them and I'll say, why you want to be all like that? And then they laugh. They're like, oh my goodness, did my teacher just talk? No, don't talk to me that way. Oh man, you wildin'. Oh no, don't talk that way. You're my teacher. I don't want to hear that. And then we laugh and then we move on. And things cool down. But humor goes so far.
I'm pretty sure that a couple of students did come into the situation maybe having a set way of thinking, or maybe thinking like, oh, look at this person, who's this person is. So I can understand you having to break through that. Not even like, you feel me, having to deal with something like that you were thinking, but just dealing with students that have problems with authority, or just, I understand,
I have a question.
Lighten the mood.
About reaching some kids. Is it the teacher's job to, because everybody, like the kids, they learn different. Like everybody has a different, like some people like are sound learners or like visual learning, or do you have certain ways that you could tell like they needed that type of learning, or?
Absolutely. It's my job to figure out how they best are able to learn. Okay. And I'll qualify that by saying very difficult to do, especially like this year. I've got 160 kids in 6 different classes, 3 a day. It's tough. This was the toughest year for me because just learning their names with so many kids was difficult, and remembering it took me longer than it ever has in all my years of teaching. But I know how to tap into certain kids' interests. Like you said, some are visual learners, some do stuff hands-on.
I remember a girl, in school, she couldn't stop moving her leg. But she was like, I can't, because she was like, when the teacher's talking, when I'm moving my leg, I'm absorbing the information. Like, I'm remembering what she's saying, and the teacher would yell at her, like, stop moving. She was like, she would stop, and then she'd be like fidgety, like, and then she'd be disruptive in class and everything. And I noticed it as a kid, like maybe she's learning that way. I didn't understand like she was like a moving learner or however she had to focus. But like my son, he stares at the teacher. Like he's like, I have to watch her when she's talking. So he was like, I can't explain it, Dad. He was like, I just know what she's saying. Like I attain the information when I'm watching her. And he was like, if I'm not watching her or paying attention, I can't pay attention to the class. Like he was like, so I stare at the teacher the whole time.
Yeah, and I look for that kind of behavior, so I know, like there are certain kids, for example, I need to push them to say participate in the discussion.
I was one of those kids.
And yet there are other kids. I have a kid in my class right now, and it's an honors class. Wow. So he's proven himself to be intelligent. Somebody recommended him. However, he did not say a single word for, I'll just say, many months. Wow. And I realized, you know what? I'm not going to make him read Shakespeare out loud. He doesn't want to speak to begin with. He does all his work, never behavioral problem. Wow. I realized, and I told him, I said, I know I said I'm going to make everyone pick a number out of a hat and you're all going to play roles. I said, I wouldn't do that to you. I don't see the point. Yeah. And on a similar note, I know other kids, they may not be the greatest writers, but I know that they are fantastic artists. So just the other day, in fact, I knew this kid didn't want to write an essay about a character in Shakespeare, so I said, here, I'm going to give you an option to this assignment. Draw either a picture or a series of 4 cartoon panels showing your favorite scene or an important scene from this. So that way, that kid is able to demonstrate understanding of the text without forcing him to write a research paper about it. And, you know, then there's room for that, and it's you have to be flexible. And you know, I think most schools are open to that. They don't want that one size fits all. But you never know. You could have your kid in a school. When I was a substitute teacher before I became a full-time teacher, I was horrified one day when this teacher looked at this little kid. I think it was first grade, in fact, because I subbed all different classes. I think it was first grade, kindergarten, second grade, whatever. It was the lower grades. And the kid used a specific word. I wish I remember which one. And the teacher said to him, it's nice that you use that word, Johnny. However, that's a second grade word, and you'll get a chance to use that next year. I wrote a poem about that got actually published in the Edison Literary Review. I was so inspired and horrified by that. I wrote like a mock, like a poem in which I mocked that situation. Wow. It was inspiring in a bad way. So
yeah, get your inspiration from some places sometimes, like from those places.
All types of muses.
Yep.
That what's the thing to say though? Wow. Now that goes to what she was saying. Move that kid up.
Yeah. I was thinking when you brought that up before, it's exactly. I thought of that situation and said, I remember.
It's we as parents, people, whatever, who will hold back. You know what I'm saying? Who will hold
parents
back
are dream killers. That's a
given. Our parents are definitely dream killers. All the way. All the way. I'll never tell y'all how my mom will never tell me she's proud of me. Right. That's okay though.
Poor 80s babies.
Oh, see, well, my parents. Well, I can't say they all were dream killers because my mom.
You say you got it.
She helped a lot with a lot of stuff, but they were only doing the best they could with what they knew.
Yeah,
and their understanding.
True.
Yeah, they had to go off of their level.
I told my mom and my family I wanted to be a musician, but you know. It was like, come on now, like think a little more realistic. You know what I mean?
Same here.
And they're scared. Like it's not like they're scared.
And I understand that, but I think that's parents. I think that's parents from back then, though.
I mean, my parents are old.
With our generation now, though, I think our parents are more accepting of. You know,
they don't have a choice because they're grandparents now.
Yeah.
Right.
But also,
we're the parents that are making it.
To go to college, not wanting to.
They're coming from an era. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Coming from an era of
manual labor.
Yeah, true.
To survive or to become successful, and now creativity will get you wherever you want to go. And they'll look at us like, why you not a housekeeper? Why you don't want to get a regular job?
I came from a house of all musicians. That's the funny thing. Like all pianos in my house, guitars, everything. I thought everybody in our neighborhood. I thought the world knew how to play instruments because people in my family know how to play instruments. So I just thought everybody knows how to play a musical instrument. And it wasn't until I got out into school and the world and everybody's like, how do you know how to do that? And I'm like, I play guitar. Like, what the hell were you doing in the house all the time? But so my mother and them were like, okay, so what do you want to do? So I'm like, duh, all this music we got. And they're like, nah, you got to be a little realistic and think about this and that. And they put the doubt in there. I was like, oh, well, maybe I can't make it. Wow.
I wanted to be a rock star, but my parents, they did the same thing. They said, be more realistic. But I gave them a reason to quash that dream because I said, I want to be like Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, God.
So
and the first thing you think about is him biting the bat's head.
Or him just being a babbling drug addict. That's right. All right. Yeah, they probably saw him and thought, we don't want our child to be like that babbling idiot. We don't care how successful he is.
How much money you get?
Oh, man. Oh, by the way, I came across my childhood hero, Ozzy Osbourne, when I was working in New York one time, and I didn't recognize him.
No?
He came running in. I probably ruined half the story here, but I saw a guy working the midnight shift at a hotel called the Helmsley Palace in New York back in the 80s and early 90s. Empty luxury hotel. It's the middle of the night, and I see a guy walk in from 51st Street in Manhattan. Long hair, sunglasses, long coat. Got to be a crazy man. Comes running up the stairs. I go running after him, yelling at him, hey, where you going? He turns around with his British accent that I didn't expect. He said, I gotta use the loo, all right. The loo being a bathroom, for those that don't know. So I'm standing there, I'm like, put on my tough guy security face. I'm waiting for him to come down. Coworker says to me, what are you doing? So I'm waiting for that weirdo to come down out of the bathroom. They said, I was Ozzy Osbourne. I said, no. Been a fan of his since I was a kid. No, you just yelled at Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, okay.
Did I?
Oops,
So now
and
how
then
do I fix
walked
this?
away. Oh, the next day I tried to fix it by opening. He went jogging around the block. Believe it or not, old druggy Ozzy Osbourne went jogging around the block of the hotel. I went to do the nice thing. I said, let me open the door for him to the executive area there. I went to open the door. He wasn't paying attention. I nearly slammed a plate glass door into Ozzy Osbourne's head, nearly split his head open. And he looked at me like, you again.
You, yeah. This guy's trying to take me out now.
Oh, my God.
Premeditated. I'm sure. Well, I mean, you did say something about the hotel in New York, and you did come across a few celebrities. Do you have any other interesting stories that maybe our listeners would like to hear?
I had, without going through the whole list, I saw so many famous people, especially, this was the late 80s, early 90s. Michael Jackson, for example, that was where he stayed. He stayed in it was a 3-level suite called a triplex, the Princess Grace Suite. 3 levels, $2,500 a night. The tax alone was $500 a night on this place. But anyway, I snuck him in the side door one night. He was on tour that year, and snuck him in the side door from the garage, got him away from some fans that were waiting outside that knew where he was staying. And I took it upon myself. I know they didn't ask me to do this, but when we got him to the elevator, I got on the elevator first and held it open. So, and Michael Jackson, his bodyguard, who makes me look small. I mean, I'm not a little guy, but his bodyguard fills half the elevator. And it's Michael Jackson, the bodyguard, some kid, and apparently the kid's mom. Turns out it was Macaulay Culkin, the kid from Home Alone. And I just, kind of stood there and trying not to look at him. But I'm thinking, I'm in the elevator. I'm 3 feet away from the biggest pop star on the planet Earth. How can I not at least look at him once? That's it. I just, just kind of look over real slow, and the bodyguard looks at me like, what are you looking at? And then he gets off the elevator, and he just looks at me, and he says, thank you. Real soft voice. Little more interesting than that story, though. And again, it's one of those late night situations. I've got this, it's an elevator attendant, and we're standing there, we're passing the time, not much going on. Well, all of a sudden, keep in mind, this is around 1987, 88. All of a sudden, about 2 o'clock in the morning, then heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson, walks in with 2 people. Well, now, keep in mind, this is new. He's huge, but he's the new heavyweight champ. everyone is like, oh, yes, Mr. Tyson. Hello, Mr. Tyson. Welcome, Mr. Tyson. What can we do for you, Mr. Tyson? I mean, they're kissing his ass. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous. So me and this guy, the elevator attendant, we look over. We're like, you know what? He got enough attention. We're not giving him any attention. He doesn't need our help. Well, Tyson notices this. And I guess it offended his ego or something. So he goes out of his way. Big old open lobby. And Tyson goes out of his way and walks between this guy Tom and me, like shoulder almost in my face. And for a split second, like he got me so mad that he did that. For a split second, I just wanted to cough or something in his face as he walked by, and almost did it. But then I thought, I do not feel like getting my jaw broken right now, and I didn't do it. Funny thing is, though, he kept walking, and he's turning around, he's looking at me, he's looking over his shoulder like, yeah, you got something to say? You gonna do something? And he's not paying attention to where he's doing. He trips over a plugged-in vacuum in the wall. And he doesn't fall, but he stumbles a bit, and then he turns around. He says to the guy with the vacuum, he just looks at him, and he says, oh, sorry. And that was it. And he kept going. And he kept going, and I thought, yeah, that's good.
Karma,
Keep going.
Mike.
Keep going. Yeah, you lucky, Tyson.
I mean,
No, I think we were almost the same size too, at like height and weight at the time. But I think for obvious reasons, safe bet that he would have whooped my ass. So,
wow.
yeah.
That's a kind of dope story, though.
Yeah, that is a dope.
Yeah.
That is dope.
Instant. I
Pretty
love
cool.
instant gratification, though. I love instant karma. Like I really do. Instant karma is pivotal for me. Like my kids, I love instant karma with them. Like my daughter will be like going at it with her little smart mouth, whatever. And then I remember the one time she slipped all the way back down the stairs. I had told her it's time to take a bath. Kids and taking baths, I don't know what the problem is, but she was running up the stairs. She was so angry, like you know how they do up the stairs. Missed one step and fell all the way back.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Love instant karma.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, it was
That's
nice.
how karma works with me anyway. So it's always like boom, boom. Like I remember when I was younger, I stole a pack of cookies from the store, like 65-cent cookies. So on my way home, I get to my house. I don't have my damn house keys. I gotta call a maintenance guy.
Oh, no.
$65. Cost me $65 to get in my house from stealing a 65-cent pack of cookies. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Right.
Life does work out that way sometimes.
As soon as he was like, yeah, it's
Instant
65, I was like, of course it's 65, isn't it?
Right, because that's how
I'm
much
sitting there thinking,
were.
65-cent pack of fucking vanilla wafer cookies in my pocket. Like, yeah,
The fuck? Right.
that'll work. Here, just take it. Take it.
Right.
Lesson learned.
Yep.
Instant every time. I mean, I love it. But when it comes to my karma, like for people who've done me wrong and I gotta turn around and wait for their karma, that shit is hell.
Yeah.
But I just got mine. I ain't even gonna front. I ain't gonna front by my little domestic violence situation. My ex cut his goddamn hand off.
Wow.
So, it took a long time, but we got it.
Take him in there to Guam, drops. He already know Guam. When y'all done.
Yeah, so.
Right now, you're listening to Elevation Radio. Let's build.